Hello everybody, this is Carol from Practical Mystic. Thanks for joining me today. We are now continuing with my modified Celtic cross spread, and this is part 2. As you may recall, we ended it by talking how we choose a significator, and we're going to do that today. But before I do that, I do want to clarify something that I had said on the first part from a viewer who said, well, what did you mean when you said here is the other 6? Well, we know that in numerology there are only 9 numbers. When there is a double number like the number 15, we reduce it back by adding it across. So 1 and 5 is 6. So key number 15, the devil, has within it the original number of 6. But it, of course, also has the influence and corresponding interpretations of numbers 1 and 5. So when you reduce double numbers back, you always have a base digit. So we have the lovers as the original 6, and then the devil 15 also has a lot of similarities, as you can see how the picture is depicted, how they're very similar, and that is why I said here is the other 6. Okay, folks, so now you're in your tarot room, you're ready to do a reading for a client, also known as a querent, also known as a seeker. And if at all possible, as I had said in part 1, you, the reader, wants to be sitting facing south and your client across from you facing north. Then you are going to now pick up the tarot deck, and of course it could be wrapped in a cloth. I usually take it out, lay the cards down, and then I immediately pick them up. I don't shuffle, and I look for where the significator card is in the deck. So let's do that right now. My client is the Queen of Cups. So you're going to look for where the Queen of Cups is. Okay. And you're going to do this, and your client is sitting across from you, and you're going to say, I'm taking out the card that represents you. And there is the Queen of Cups. All right. You also, now I'm holding these this way because the card to the right of the significator card and the card to the left are where we're going to get extra meaning even before we do the Celtic cross. The first thing we note is whether the court card is upright or reverse. In this situation, the court card is reverse. That indicates that the seeker is not comfortable. There is some stress. There are certainly a lot of questions. It may mean that her environment is stressful. It may mean that her job, her people, her family, but she right now is not balanced and at her best. It could be the reason why she scheduled an appointment. If the court card was upright when you found it, then it indicates that the client is doing well, that they are able to manage any kind of stress or challenges that are occurring in everyday life, and it really isn't influencing them in a way that the tarot is representing to you and asking you to take note of. All right, going back to the original position, then you're going to reap additional information as to, okay, the Queen of Cups is reversed. What's going on? Well, within a 24 to 48 hour period, the card on the left, which represents that time frame, usually the past, let's put the cards down here. And I put them this way because you're going to want to put them back exactly as they are, not to break up the tarot deck as it was intended for this reading. So you're going to do this very quickly as you become well acquainted with this method. You're going to look at the 5 of Swords, and you're going to look at the Queen of Swords, and you're going to say, aha, I have 2 suits the same. I have 2 swords. Okay, what does swords indicate? Well, swords indicate thinking, evaluating, mental, okay? Then you're going to say, I have another court card, and that is the Queen of Swords. Here's where it can become a little tricky. The Queen of Swords can very well represent another person in your client's life, or it can indicate an alter personality. It can indicate that your client wishes to be more like the personality traits of what the Queen of Swords indicates. Or like I said earlier, it could be a coworker, it could be a sister, it could be a friend. So there's where you kind of have to keep that all in mind, and hopefully you will get guidance and more insight on that when you lay out the rest of the Celtic Cross spread. But we could also glean a little bit more information here by looking at the Five of Swords. In the tarot, the five in all the suits indicate challenges, indicate strife, indicate conflict. Now, in numerology, 5 indicates adjustment, change, with the pursuit of wanting freedom. It says, okay, I have to think differently and put my ducks in another way. I'm going to make these adjustments. It isn't what I want to do, but I have to do it so that I'm free to move along. Because remember, the number 5 is the halfway point between 1 and 10 in each of the suits of the tarot. So it's quite natural that there has to be a reevaluation or an adjustment, because you are looking at the experiencing of the past, and then you're looking at cards 6 through 10 to go forward with whatever adjustment is going to occur here. Okay, now the first thing that you see is we are breaking up or severing ties, because the swords are broken up. We can also look at it as agitation by the way the clouds are formed and the water is rippled. So the mind is agitated. Now, could it be agitated because there was a woman involved as well that got the ball rolling? Because we also know that the Queen of Swords is quite an analytical lady, and she is just. She wants to use her two-edged sword very quickly and say, matter-of-factly, this is right, this is wrong, this is true, this is false. But she's not reversed, so she may be saying, communicating to the querent what is happening in the past, that happened in the past, that the querent may need to address. So we can look at this in, like I said, agitation of the mind. We can also look at this as 3 parts of the mind, or 3 ways that each of the figures are responding to the 5 of Swords, okay? So let's look at this figure. He says, okay, I'm winning here. I've got 3 of the 5 swords, so I'm good to go. You have the second figure who laid down his sword and said, I'm giving up. There's no more use in communicating. I know when this isn't going to go anywhere, so I'm just going to walk away. And then you have the third aspect of what has occurred, where the third gentleman is kind of weeping, almost like he's been defeated. So he feels like he is victor. This one says, I'm leaving this alone. I know when to quit. But this one says, I've been defeated. I feel terrible in some way. So you can look at that as well. And I probably went off on a tangent like I usually do. I apologize. Okay. So getting back, you're going to be doing this very, very quickly. Now you have two choices here. You can first say to your client, okay, you are reverse when I went to find your significator, and you're going to put it, you're going to show her that you're putting it upright, and you may say something like, I see that you're emotionally, there's a lot going on, and hopefully we will find clarity as we proceed with this reading. You may not want to say anything to validate or to disvalidate what you're reading here as a possibility. Okay, so at that point, you now put the cards back as they were originally, okay? And you are the reader, and you are going to now ground yourself. I think grounding is very, very important. I will do a grounding video. I think that's a video in and of itself, but what I would do right now before I proceed with the Celtic Cross is I would ground myself and begin shuffling the cards, take some deep breaths, and I would say, I am open to the highest vibration only. Everything I need to know comes to me easily and effortlessly. I'm going to say this, of course, to myself as I'm really shuffling the cards, okay? And when I feel that the cards are shuffled, I then hand them over to my client. Now I'm going to go on the other side as we continue this. All right, so bear with me a little bit as I find my way across. Okay, I am here, and yes, I dropped something, but it is nothing to be concerned about. All right, so here I am. I'm going to get the candle out of my way so I don't burn my hands. And I am going to be acting as the client right now. So your client has the cards in her hands, and you are going to say to her, all right, while you shuffle the cards, I would like you to think about the question you would like an answer to. Your client may say, oh my goodness, Carol, I am so confused. There's more than one question. I don't know where to begin, and I'm not, I just don't know. Well, then you can offer her these options, which 9 times out of 10, this is the option my client usually uses. You can say, okay, repeat in your mind while you're shuffling the cards, the truth to be revealed, or the wisdom of the tarot. And you have them, you don't have to, they don't have to tell you, okay, I'm going to pick this one, I'm not going to pick that one. But you tell them again, they can repeat that over and over in their mind as they're shuffling the cards. This way, they won't influence the cards. They won't color the cards. They won't have emotions be going into the cards as they're thinking of their questions or their situation or their problems or their challenges or their fears. This neutralizes all that and puts it into the hands of the tarot, higher spirit, divination. So I do recommend these very highly for someone who is here seeking guidance because their life right now has multiple issues that they're looking for clarification on. All right, let's get back. So your client now has decided, and she or he is shuffling the cards. All right. You tell her that when she feels, wow, these cards have been very active as I'm doing this video. You tell her that when she feels that the cards have been shuffled, to lay them down. And voila, we do. And then you say, with your left hand, I want you to cut the cards 3 times to the left. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Let me get back to where I am. sitting so I can face you. All right. At that point, a few things can happen. Sometimes when your client is cutting the cards may start slipping. If you see his or her hand going to fix it, say, nope, don't worry about that. Just let them lay where they are. Now, what we're doing is we are evaluating the height of the cards, how the cards piles equal up of each other. Each of the piles has a title, which we're going to go and talk about that together. We're going to look at the pile that has less cards, and all of that I'm going to cover with you today. All right, so the first pile is the body. Whoops, and I shouldn't have done that. The second pile is the mind. And the third pile is spirit, or I like to say higher self, okay? And I say that because the spirit pile, well, let me go backtrack because I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay. The body pile represents the physical body as well as the environment that the seeker is presently in, okay? The mind, of course, represents the amount of thinking or the state of mind the seeker is presently in. And then the spirit pile or soul higher self pile represents the seeker's aspirations, optimism at the present time. Sometimes it can also indicate the surrounding influences coming from the higher self or even spirit guides. I have often seen it where the cards for the spirit deck are like this. And that's when they go to try to, conform them and put them into a nice, neat little pile. But that usually tells me that my client has brought in spirit guides or there's other influence here in the room that is going to be influencing this tarot reading. Okay? All right, so you as the reader now are going to evaluate, okay, is there one pile bigger than the next? And really in comparison, they look pretty well even. Now, if one is, let's say, much higher than, let's say the body pile is very high and then you have kind of an even mind and spirit, then there's a lot going on in the physical body, and that's true with each of the three piles. The one that is, let's say there's one that's very, very thin, then that indicates that that energy is lacking or blocked, and that may need to be reopened, or that's where there could be some fears of wanting to know information. And let's say that the deck is, as we are seeing it here, pretty much all nice and even. It means that presently the body, mind, and spirit are pretty well balanced, and there's nothing really off kilter for you, the reader, to take note of. So at that point, you, the reader, are going to restack the deck. Now, your client cut the cards 3 times to the left, so now you're going to continue with that by going to the left, putting it on top, and this way, and then you take the cards back, and then me and you perceive and continue with ready to lay out the Celtic cross spread. Now, folks, I think that's where we're going to cut it. This is probably long enough, and when we come back, when I do part 3, I will go ahead and tell you the next step that I do. There's one more step in the process of laying out the cards, we'll go through that, but I don't want this to be too long. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment, to email me if you have any questions about this or the previous video. And as always, folks, just know how much I appreciate you listening, you commenting, and being part of my YouTube channel. Blessings and bye for now.